The fluorescent lights of the grocery store buzzed overhead as Maya counted her register for the third time that evening. $19.23. That's what she'd made in tips that day, stuffed into an old envelope she kept in her apron pocket. It wasn't much, but every single dollar mattered now more than ever. She glanced at the clock mounted above aisle 3. 10 minutes until closing. Her feet ached in her worn sneakers, the same ones she'd been wearing for almost 2 years now. The sole on the left one had a small hole that let in water when it rained, but new shoes weren't in the budget. They probably wouldn't be for a long time. Maya was 20 years old, though most days she felt much older. Life had a way of aging you when you had to grow up too fast. She'd been working at Martinez Grocery since she was 16, right after her parents died in that awful accident. Now it was just her and Grandma Rose in their small apartment on the east side of town, the part of the city where the streetlights flickered and sometimes didn't work at all. The front door chimed, and old Mrs. Patterson shuffled in with her canvas shopping bag. Maya smiled genuinely. Mrs. Patterson always came in right before closing, and Maya never minded. Some of the other cashiers complained about late customers, but Maya understood. When you're elderly and alone, sometimes you just need a reason to leave the house, even if it's just to buy a can of soup and exchange a few kind words with someone. After Mrs. Patterson left, Maya locked the front door and began her closing routine. Sweep the floors, take out the trash, wipe down the counters. Her manager, Mr. Lopez, had already left for the night, trusting her with the final lockup. She'd earned that trust over 4 years of never missing a shift, never being late, never complaining. As she walked home through the dimly lit streets, Maya mentally calculated her finances for the 100th time that week. Rent was due in 5 days. They had enough for that, barely. The electric bill was manageable. Food they could make work with her employee discount. But Grandma Rose's medication, the one that kept her heart condition stable, that was the problem. Insurance covered most of it, but the copay had suddenly jumped to $300 a month. The pharmacy had explained something about formulary changes and prior authorizations, but Maya had stopped listening after they told her the new price. $300 might as well have been $3,000. She'd already cut back on everything she could think of. No more coffee from the corner shop, no more streaming subscriptions, no new clothes, nothing. She'd even started skipping lunch most days, telling herself she wasn't that hungry anyway. When Maya opened the apartment door, she found Grandma Rose asleep in her recliner, the television playing softly. A game show host was asking contestants questions about state capitals. Maya turned off the TV and gently draped a blanket over her grandmother's thin shoulders. Grandma Rose stirred and opened her eyes. "Oh, sweetheart, you're home. I must have dozed off. That's okay, Grandma. How are you feeling today?" "Oh, you know me. Tough as old boots." But Maya noticed the slight wheeze in her breathing, the pale color of her skin. They were down to the last few pills in the prescription bottle. Maya had called the pharmacy 3 times hoping for some kind of payment plan, but they'd been firm. No medication until the copay was paid in full. That night, Maya couldn't sleep. She lay in bed, staring at the water stain on the ceiling that looked like a butterfly, thinking about options she didn't have. At 2 in the morning, she made a decision. She'd get a second job. By the end of the week, Maya had found night work cleaning offices downtown. The hours were brutal, 11 at night until 4 in the morning, but it paid $12 an hour. If she worked 5 nights a week, she could make enough for the medication with some left over. She'd be exhausted, running on maybe 3 hours of sleep a day, but what choice did she have? Grandma Rose was everything to her. After the accident, when Maya had been just a scared 12-year-old with nowhere to go, Rose had taken her in without hesitation. She'd worked double shifts at the diner to keep them afloat, had helped Maya with her homework, had held her when she cried for her parents, had been both grandmother and mother and father all rolled into one fierce, loving woman. Now it was Maya's turn to be the strong one. The cleaning job was harder than she'd expected. The building was huge, 12 floors of offices that all needed vacuuming, dusting, and trash removal. Her supervisor, a tired-looking woman named Gloria, showed her the ropes on the first night. "You'll be assigned floors 8 through 12, Gloria explained. "Vacuum all carpeted areas, empty all trash bins. Clean the bathrooms on each floor and wipe down any conference room tables." "Think you can handle it?" Maya nodded, even though her arms already ached from her grocery store shift. "Yes, ma'am. I can handle it." For 2 weeks, Maya managed both jobs, She'd work at the grocery store from 2 in the afternoon until 10 at night, grab a quick dinner from the dented can discount section, then head downtown for her cleaning shift. By the time she got home, the sun would be rising, and she'd catch a few hours of sleep before starting all over again. The exhaustion was crushing. She started making small mistakes at the grocery store, scanning items twice or forgetting to ask if customers wanted their receipt. Mr. Lopez had noticed but hadn't said anything yet, just given her concerned looks that Maya pretended not to see. But she was making progress on the medication fund. She kept the cash in an envelope labeled Grandma's Medicine, watching it slowly grow. $240. Just 60 more to go. Then came the night that changed everything. It was a Tuesday or maybe Wednesday. Maya had lost track of what day it was. She was on the 11th floor, pushing her cleaning cart down the hallway of what looked like a law firm. Big wooden doors with gold lettering, fancy carpet that her vacuum cleaner seemed to sink into. She was so tired that she almost didn't see him. There, lying on the floor near the bathroom, was an elderly man in a janitor's uniform. For a horrible second, Maya thought he might be dead, but then she saw his chest moving, shallow breaths that came too fast. "Sir?" She dropped to her knees beside him. "Sir, can you hear me?" His eyes fluttered open. He looked confused, disoriented. I don't feel right," he managed to say. His accent was thick, maybe Chinese or Korean. His name tag read Mr. Chen. Maya's mind raced. She should call 911. She should call Gloria. She should. But Mr. Chen was trying to say something. "My pills," he whispered, gesturing weakly toward his cart. "Heart pills. In my bag." Maya found his lunch bag and the prescription bottle inside. Nitroglycerin. She'd seen the same medication in Grandma Rose's medicine cabinet. Heart problems. This was serious. "I'm calling an ambulance," Maya said, already pulling out her phone. No, Mr. Chen protested weakly. "Too expensive. I just need to rest." But Maya was already talking to the 911 operator, giving them the address, describing the symptoms. She'd seen what happened when people skipped medication or avoided the hospital because of money. She'd seen it with her own parents, who'd waited too long to get that weird sound in the car engine checked out. She wasn't going to watch someone else suffer because of money, not if she could help it. The ambulance arrived 15 minutes later. The paramedics loaded Mr. Chen onto a stretcher, and Maya stood there in the hallway watching them work. One of the paramedics turned to her. "Are you family?" "No, I found him." "He's lucky you did. This looks like a cardiac episode." Another 30 minutes and the paramedic didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. As they wheeled Mr. Chen toward the elevator, he reached out and grabbed Maya's hand with surprising strength. "Thank you," he said, his eyes clear now, focused on her face. "Thank you, young lady." Then they were gone, and Maya was alone in the hallway with her cleaning cart and a mess of medical wrappers on the floor. Gloria appeared from the stairwell, breathless. "Maya, what happened? Someone said there was an ambulance?" Mr. Chen collapsed. "I called 911. Gloria's face softened. Oh, that poor man. He's been working here for years. Lives alone, I think. No family." She paused, looking at Maya with something like respect. "You did good, kid, real good. But listen, you're way behind on your floors now. Think you can finish by 4? Maya looked at the clock. It was already past midnight, and she still had 2.5 floors to clean. She'd have to move fast, which meant she'd be even more exhausted tomorrow. It also meant she'd miss some of tomorrow's sleep since she had to open at the grocery store. But when she thought about Mr. Chen's grateful eyes, the way he'd squeezed her hand, she knew she'd made the right choice. "I'll finish," she said. "I always do." That night, Maya worked faster than she ever had before, her body running on pure adrenaline. By the time she locked up the building and headed home, the sun was already painting the sky pink and gold. She'd done a good thing. She knew that. But she also knew she'd lost nearly 2 hours of work time, which meant less money, which meant the medication fund would take longer to fill. Sometimes doing the right thing cost you. But Grandma Rose had always taught her that helping others was never the wrong choice, even when it hurt. As Maya finally collapsed into bed, she thought about Mr. Chen and hoped he'd be okay. She had no idea that helping a stranger would change her life forever. She had no idea that the mystery was just beginning. Maya didn't expect to see Mr. Chen again. In her experience, you helped people when you could, and then life moved on. The city was full of brief encounters like that. moments of connection that flickered and then disappeared. But 3 days later, as she was cleaning the 11th floor again, she found herself wondering about the old janitor. Had he made it? Was he okay? She asked Gloria during their break. Gloria was microwaving something that smelled like leftover Chinese food in the break room on the 3rd floor. Mr. Chen, oh yeah, I heard from building management. He's at County Hospital. Had a mild heart attack, but they stabilized him. He'll be there for a while, I guess. Gloria took a bite of her food. Shame, he's got nobody to visit him. Been working here for decades, keeps to himself mostly. Something twisted in Maya's chest. She knew what it felt like to be alone in a hospital. When Grandma Rose had pneumonia last year, Maya had sat by her bedside every moment she wasn't working, holding her hand, reminding her that someone cared. Which hospital did you say? Maya asked, already knowing what she was going to do. County Hospital wasn't far from the grocery store. On her break the next day, Maya stopped by the gift shop, bought a small card with her own money that she couldn't afford to spend, and wrote a simple message. Hoping you feel better soon. From the girl who found you. She asked at the nurse's station for Mr. Chen's room number. The nurse, a young guy with kind eyes, looked surprised. Are you family? No, just a friend. He studied her for a moment, then nodded. Room 417. Visiting hours end at 8. Maya found Mr. Chen sitting up in bed looking small and frail in the hospital gown. The TV was on but muted, showing some soap opera. He looked up when she knocked softly on the doorframe. For a moment he didn't recognize her. Then his face broke into a smile that transformed his features. You, he said, the girl from the building. You saved my life. Maya felt her cheeks warm. I just called 911. The paramedics did all the real work. Sit. He gestured to the chair beside his bed. Please, I've had no visitors. The nurses are nice, but they're always rushing. It's good to see a face. Maya sat, suddenly unsure what to say. She wasn't good at small talk. But Mr. Chen didn't seem to need her to fill the silence. He just looked grateful that someone was there. How are you feeling? She finally asked. Better. Much better. The doctors, they say I need to take it easy. Maybe retire. He laughed, but it sounded sad. I'm 78 years old. I should have retired 10 years ago. But what else would I do? Sit at home and watch the wall? Maya understood that feeling. Sometimes work was the only thing that gave your day's structure, purpose. Do you have family? She asked, then immediately worried she'd been too nosy. Sorry, I shouldn't. It's okay. Mr. Chen's expression grew distant. I had a son. Long time ago, we didn't speak. I was too proud, he was too stubborn. Both of us too foolish, he shook his head. Now it's just me. They talked for almost an hour. Maya told him about Grandma Rose, about working 2 jobs, though she didn't mention why she needed the extra money. Mr. Chen told her about coming to America 50 years ago, with nothing but a suitcase and a dream of a better life. He'd worked in restaurants, factories, cleaning crews, always saving his money, always planning for a future that somehow never quite arrived the way he'd imagined. You remind me of my son, Mr. Chen said softly. He had a good heart like you, always helping people even when he had nothing himself. I used to tell him he was too soft for this world. I was wrong about that. World needs soft hearts. When visiting hours ended, Maya promised she'd come back. And she did. Every day during her grocery store break, she'd stop by County Hospital. Sometimes she'd bring things from the store, little treats that were marked down or close to expiring, a pudding cup, a magazine, a pack of crackers. Nothing expensive, but enough to show she cared. Mr. Chen looked forward to her visits. Maya could tell because his face would light up the moment she appeared in the doorway. They'd talk about everything and nothing. He told her stories about old Hong Kong, about his journey to America, about the son he'd lost to pride and stubbornness. His name was David, Mr. Chen said one afternoon. We fought about his choices. He wanted to be a social worker, help poor kids. I wanted him to be a doctor, an engineer, something stable. I said terrible things. He left. That was 33 years ago. I never saw him again. Maya's heart ached for him. Did you ever try to find him? I was too proud. Kept thinking he would come back, apologize. But he never did. And I never went looking. Biggest mistake of my life. He looked at his hands, weathered and spotted with age. Don't make my mistakes, young lady. Don't let pride steal your family. On her 7th visit, the doctors told Mr. Chen he could be discharged soon. He'd need to move into a care facility. somewhere with medical staff on site. He couldn't go back to his apartment, couldn't work anymore. Maya could see how much that hurt him, the loss of independence. "What will happen to your things?" she asked. "My apartment, they'll clean it out. Landlord will sell whatever's worth selling. My work locker, same thing," he paused. "But I have a storage unit. Had it for years. Full of old junk, papers, things I should have thrown away decades ago." He fumbled for something on his bedside table, a small key on a simple ring. "Would you do me a favor?" One more kindness from a kind girl. Maya took the key. It was warm from being in his hand. "Of course. What do you need?" "The storage unit, it's paid up for the whole year. But after that, they'll auction it off. Would you go there, clean it out for me? Keep whatever you want, sell the rest. It's just gathering dust anyway." He wrote down the address on a piece of paper. Maya looked at it, surprised. It was in a nicer part of town, the kind of place she usually avoided because it made her feel poor and out of place. "Are you sure?" she asked. "You don't want to go through it yourself?" Mr. Chen shook his head firmly. "I'm moving forward now. No more looking back. Besides, you've been so kind to me. Let me give you something in return. Maybe there's furniture you can use or sell. Consider it payment for all these visits." Maya wanted to protest that she hadn't visited him for payment, that she'd done it because it felt right, but she could see he needed this, needed to feel like he was giving something back. So she nodded and tucked the key safely in her pocket. "Thank you, Mr. Chen. I'll take care of it." The day Mr. Chen was transferred to the care facility, Maya took an extra long break to say goodbye. He looked better, stronger, but also sad. This was an ending for him, the closing of one chapter of his life. "You're a good girl," he said, holding both her hands in his. "Your grandmother, she raised you right. Don't ever forget the power of kindness. It ripples out in ways you can't imagine." Maya hugged him, careful not to squeeze too hard. "I'll visit you at the new place," she promised. "Maybe, but don't feel you have to. You've done enough already, more than enough." He pressed a folded piece of paper into her hand, the storage unit address and the code. "Go soon, and Maya, whatever you find there, it's yours. Make use of it. Build something good." It took Maya 3 more days to find time to visit the storage facility. Between her 2 jobs and taking care of Grandma Rose, every hour was spoken for. But her curiosity had been building. What could Mr. Chen possibly have stored away for all these years? The facility was clean and modern, nothing like the dingy places she'd imagined. The woman at the front desk checked her paperwork, verified the key, and directed her to Unit 218 on the 2nd floor. Maya stood in front of the roll-up door, key in hand, suddenly nervous. She wasn't sure why. It was just a storage unit, probably some old furniture, maybe some boxes of papers like Mr. Chen had said. She'd sort through it, take anything useful, maybe sell some things to add to the medication fund. She unlocked the padlock and lifted the door. The unit was packed, floor to ceiling, wall to wall, filled with boxes, furniture draped in old sheets, filing cabinets, and stacks of papers. It smelled musty like old books and dust and time. Maya stood in the doorway, overwhelmed. This would take days to sort through, maybe weeks. How had Mr. Chen accumulated all this? And why keep it if he lived such a simple life? She started with the boxes nearest the door. The first few contained old clothes, newspapers from the 1990s, kitchen items wrapped in yellowed newspaper. Nothing valuable, just the collected debris of a life lived. But then she opened a box that was different. It was sealed with tape that looked newer than the rest, and when she cut it open, she found file folders organized with labels, bank statements, investment records, stock certificates. Maya's hands trembled as she pulled out the papers. These weren't just old documents. Some of these statements were recent, from just a few years ago, and the numbers on them made her head spin. Mr. Chen had money. A lot of money. She sat back on her heels, trying to make sense of it. The old janitor who'd worked until he collapsed, who lived alone in a modest apartment, who'd worried about ambulance costs, had investment accounts with hundreds of thousands of dollars in them. Why? Why would someone live like that when they had money in the bank? Maya kept digging more carefully now. She found more files, more accounts. Some were old, dating back to the 1980s. Small investments that had grown over decades. Stock in companies she'd never heard of. Certificates decorated with fancy borders and official seals. In another box, she found something that made her stop cold. A smaller box, wooden with a brass clasp. The label on top read, "Cure for David, for my son when I'm ready." Maya's heart raced. Should she open it? This felt private, intimate, but Mr. Chen had told her everything in the unit was hers to go through. He'd wanted her to clean it out. With shaking hands, she opened the box. Inside were letters, dozens of them, each in an envelope addressed to David Chen at various addresses, but none of them were ever sent. They all had stamps, had been carefully prepared for mailing, but never actually mailed. Maya pulled one out, dated from 1997. Dear David, it began. I'm writing to you today because it's your birthday. You would be 35 now. I wonder where you are, what you're doing. Are you happy? Did you find what you were looking for when you left? I was wrong to say those things. I was wrong about so many things. Maya carefully put the letter back. This wasn't for her to read. These were a father's private words to his lost son. But beneath the letters she found something else. Newspaper clippings carefully preserved in plastic sleeves. And what she saw in those clippings made her blood run cold. Missing person reports from 1995. Articles about an unsolved case. And right there in the photograph accompanying one article was a young man who looked eerily like Mr. Chen. The headline read, Local social worker vanishes without trace. Maya's mind reeled. Mr. Chen's son hadn't just left after their argument. He'd gone missing. And apparently, no one had ever found out what happened to him. She sat in that storage unit for another hour, pulling out more documents, more clippings, piecing together a story that Mr. Chen had never told her. A story of a father searching, hoping, waiting for a son who might never come home. But there was something else in the clippings, something that didn't make sense. References to later years, to updates in the case, to new information. Maya pulled out her phone and started taking pictures of the documents. She'd need to look into this more carefully, somewhere with better light and more time. As she locked up the storage unit, her head spun with questions. Why had Mr. Chen never mentioned that his son hadn't just left but had disappeared? What had really happened to David Chen? And why did some of these documents suggest the story wasn't as simple as a missing person case gone cold? Maya walked back to her car, the key heavy in her pocket, feeling like she'd just opened a door to something much bigger than a storage unit full of old belongings. She'd come here expecting to find junk. Instead, she'd found a mystery that had been waiting 3 decades to be solved. Maya couldn't stop thinking about what she'd found. That night, after both her shifts, she sat at the small kitchen table in her apartment, spreading out the photographs she'd taken of the documents. Grandma Rose had already gone to bed, her soft snoring drifting from the bedroom. The newspaper clippings told a story that haunted Maya. David Chen, age 33, had been working as a social worker at a youth center in the downtown area. On March 15, 1995, he'd left work at his usual time, around 6 in the evening. His car was found 3 days later in a grocery store parking lot across town. His wallet was still inside. His keys were in the ignition. But David was gone. Police had investigated. Maya could see from the articles that they'd interviewed co-workers, friends, searched the area. But there were no leads, no witnesses, nothing. David Chen had simply vanished, leaving behind a mystery that eventually went cold like so many others. What disturbed Maya most was the date. March 1995. Mr. Chen had told her they'd fought and his son had left in 1992. But these articles suggested David had been around for at least 3 more years after that. Had Mr. Chen not known? Or had he simplified the story because the truth was too painful? Maya pulled up the library website on her phone. The public library had archives of old newspapers, records, databases. She made a note to visit during her break tomorrow. Something about this whole situation felt wrong, incomplete. Mr. Chen deserved to know what had really happened to his son, even if that truth came 30 years too late. But first, she needed to understand what she was dealing with. She opened another folder of photos on her phone, the ones showing the financial documents. Mr. Chen's investments had grown steadily over the decades. From what Maya could piece together, he'd been putting away small amounts since the 1970s, buying stocks in companies that had eventually become giants. A few thousand in Apple in 1985, some Microsoft shares in 1986. Nothing dramatic, but steady, patient investing that had compounded over time. The most recent statement she'd found was from 2023. The total value had been over $400,000. For a man who'd worked as a janitor, who'd lived simply, who'd saved every penny, this was his life's work. His legacy, And he'd apparently been saving it all for the son who never came home. Maya's heart broke for him. All that money, all that preparation for a reconciliation that never happened. What must it have felt like? Year after year, watching those accounts grow while hoping that someday, somehow, David would come back and they could make things right. The next day, Maya was so tired she could barely see straight. She'd gotten maybe 2 hours of sleep, her mind too busy turning over the mystery of David Chen. At the grocery store, Mr. Lopez pulled her aside. "Maya, we need to talk." Her stomach dropped. She knew what was coming. "You've been a great employee," Mr. Lopez continued, his expression kind but firm. "Best I've ever had, honestly. But lately you've been making mistakes, forgetting things. You fell asleep during your break yesterday. Are you okay? Is something going on?" Maya wanted to explain about the second job, about Grandma Rose's medication, about everything. But she also knew that Mr. Lopez was barely keeping this store afloat. He couldn't afford to pay her more, and he couldn't afford to keep someone who was making costly mistakes. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "I've just been having trouble sleeping. I'll do better. I promise." Mr. Lopez studied her face. "You working another job?" Maya hesitated, then nodded. "Maya." He sighed. "You're going to burn out. I've seen it happen. You're young, you think you can run on fumes forever, but you can't. Something's got to give." "I know. I need the money right now. It's temporary." He didn't look convinced, but he let it go. "Just be careful, okay? And if you need to talk or if there's something I can do to help, you let me know." Maya nodded, grateful and guilty at the same time. Mr. Lopez was a good man, but there was nothing he could do. This was her burden to carry. During her break, Maya went to the library instead of the hospital. The reference librarian, an older woman with reading glasses on a chain, helped her access the newspaper archives. Maya found dozens more articles about David Chen's disappearance, each one adding small details to the story. David had been devoted to his work at the youth center. Kids loved him. Co-workers described him as passionate, caring, someone who would go the extra mile to help a troubled teenager. He'd been seen as stable, not the type to just walk away from his life. His apartment had been checked. Nothing was missing except David himself. No signs of struggle, no note, no indication of where he'd gone or why. His bank account showed no unusual activity. One day he was there, the next he wasn't. But then Maya found something interesting. A follow-up article from 1996, a year after the disappearance. The police had received a tip that David had been seen in another state, working at a youth shelter. They'd investigated, but it had turned out to be a case of mistaken identity. However, the article mentioned something else. David's father, listed only as a local resident who wished to remain anonymous, had been funding the continued search efforts privately. He'd hired investigators, put up reward money, done everything he could to find his son. So Mr. Chen had known David had disappeared, not just left. He'd been searching all along. Why had he told Maya the story differently? Why make it sound like a simple estrangement instead of a tragedy? Maya photographed the articles and continued searching. She found more follow-ups over the years, each one smaller, buried deeper in the paper. The case had gone cold by 1998. By 2000, it was rarely mentioned at all. Just another unsolved missing person case in a city full of them. But in 2003, there was one more article. And this one made Maya's hands shake as she read it. Cold case closed, missing. Social worker confirmed dead. The article explained that David Chen's remains had been identified through dental records after being discovered in a ravine about 60 miles outside the city. The cause of death was determined to be a car accident. Apparently, David's vehicle had gone off a rural road during a storm, crashed down an embankment, and been hidden by heavy vegetation. It had taken 8 years for hikers to stumble upon the wreckage. The article noted that David had likely died in 1995, shortly after he'd gone missing. His death had been quick, accidental, tragic. Not the mysterious disappearance everyone had feared. Just a terrible accident that had gone undiscovered for nearly a decade. Maya sat back, processing this. So David hadn't abandoned his father. He hadn't chosen to stay away. He'd died, suddenly and senselessly, before they could ever reconcile, and Mr. Chen had lived with that knowledge for over 20 years now. But wait, if David had died in 1995 and been identified in 2003, that meant Mr. Chen had known his son was dead for more than 2 decades. Yet he'd still kept that storage unit, still maintained those letters, still held on to everything. Why Maya kept reading. At the bottom of the 2003 article, there was a small detail she'd almost missed. David Chen is survived by his 4-year-old daughter Lily Chen, who is now in the custody of maternal relatives. David had a daughter. Mr. Chen had a granddaughter. Maya's mind raced. A 4-year-old in 2003 would be, she quickly calculated, about 25 or 26 years old now. Where was she? Did she know about her grandfather? Did Mr. Chen know about her? The librarian announced that the library would be closing in 15 minutes. Maya hurriedly photographed the last few articles, thanked the librarian, and rushed back to her car. She sat there in the parking lot trying to piece together the timeline. David and his father fought in 1992. 3 years later, David died in an accident. 8 years after that, David's body was found and identified. At that time, the authorities discovered he'd had a young daughter. That daughter would be an adult now, living somewhere, possibly with no idea she had a grandfather still alive. Mr. Chen had told her he'd lost touch with his son. He'd said they'd fought and never reconciled. But he hadn't mentioned David's death or the granddaughter. Why keep those secrets? Unless he didn't know about the granddaughter. That was possible. If David had died before they'd reconciled, Mr. Chen might have been too grief-stricken to pay attention to those details. Or maybe the maternal relatives had kept the information private, not wanting the child to have contact with her paternal grandfather. Maya knew what she had to do. She had to find Lily Chen. She had to find out what the girl, now a woman, knew about her family. And then she had to figure out if telling Mr. Chen about his granddaughter would help him or hurt him worse. But finding someone with a common name like Lily Chen wouldn't be easy. Maya had no resources, no money for background checks or private investigators. All she had was time she couldn't afford to spare and determination born from seeing an old man's broken heart. She started that night after her cleaning shift. Public records were accessible online if you knew where to look. Maya searched birth records from around 1998 or 1999, looking for a Lily Chen born in their state. There were several. She cross-referenced them with the information from the articles, trying to narrow it down. 3 days later, exhausted and running on coffee and stubbornness, Maya found something promising. A Lily Chen, age 26, who had graduated from the state university with a degree in education. Her graduation program had a brief bio. Lily Chen plans to teach elementary school and work with at-risk youth, following in her late father's footsteps. That had to be her. The reference to her father, the age, the career choice that echoed David's social work. Maya felt a surge of triumph mixed with nerves. She'd found Mr. Chen's granddaughter. Now came the hard part. She had to reach out to this stranger and somehow explain that she had information about her grandfather. A man Lily might not even know existed. Maya found a phone number through a professional directory of teachers in the area. Her hands shook as she dialed. What if Lily didn't want to be found? What if she resented her grandfather for never reaching out? What if Maya was about to make everything worse? The phone rang 3 times. Then a young woman's voice answered. Hello? Hi, is this Lily Chen? Yes, who's calling? Maya took a deep breath. My name is Maya Rodriguez. I know this is going to sound strange, but I've been helping an elderly man clean out his storage unit, and I found some documents that I think might be about your family. About your father, David Chen. There was a long silence. Then softly, how did you find me? Public records mostly. Look, I know this is weird. We don't know each other, but I think your grandfather might still be alive, and I thought maybe you'd want to know. Another pause. My grandfather? David's father? Yes, his name is Mr. Chen. He's 78 years old, and he's been living here in the city this whole time. I didn't... Lily's voice cracked. I didn't know he was still alive. My mother's family, they never talked about him. I thought maybe he'd died too, or that he didn't want anything to do with me. I think he might not know about you, Maya said gently. The articles about your father's death mentioned you, but I'm not sure Mr. Chen ever saw them. He's been carrying around a lot of pain for a long time. Can I meet him? Lily asked, and Maya could hear tears in her voice. I've always wondered about my father's family. I have so many questions. I think that could be arranged. But Lily, there's something you should know. Your grandfather is fragile right now. He just had a heart attack. He's in a care facility. We'd need to be careful about how we do this. Of course, yes. Whatever you think is best. Lily paused. Maya, thank you. for caring enough to look for me. You didn't have to do this. Maya thought about Mr. Chen in his hospital bed, about the letters he'd written but never sent, about a lifetime of regret and what-ifs. Yes, I did, she said quietly. Some things are too important not to do. They arranged to meet the next day at a coffee shop downtown. Maya hung up and sat in her car, shaking from exhaustion and emotion. She'd found the granddaughter. She'd connected two people who'd been kept apart by tragedy and circumstance, but she still didn't know if what she was doing was right. What if the reunion went badly? What if it broke Mr. Chen's heart all over again? What if Lily blamed him for not finding her sooner? But then Maya thought about Grandma Rose, about how precious family was, about how life was too short for missed connections and unspoken words. She thought about the storage unit full of a man's carefully preserved hope, waiting all these years for someone to unlock it. Sometimes, Maya realized, the most loving thing you can do is bring people together and trust that they'll find their way, even if it's scary, even if it might hurt, because the alternative, living with the eternal what-if, was so much worse. Maya arrived at the coffee shop 15 minutes early, her stomach in knots. She'd barely slept again, running through scenarios in her head. What if Lily didn't show up? What if she was angry? What if Maya had made a terrible mistake reaching out? She ordered a black coffee she couldn't afford and sat at a corner table watching the door. Outside, the city moved at its usual frantic pace. People rushing to work, to appointments, to their own complicated lives. None of them knew that here, in this ordinary coffee shop, two strangers were about to connect over a family mystery 30 years in the making. At exactly 2 o'clock, a young woman walked in. She had dark hair pulled back in a ponytail, wore jeans and a cardigan, and carried a worn messenger bag. Her eyes scanned the coffee shop nervously until they landed on Maya. Somehow, they both just knew. Lily walked over, and up close, Maya could see the resemblance. She had Mr. Chen's eyes, that same thoughtful, cautious expression. She also looked exhausted, like she hadn't slept either. Maya? Lily asked, her voice soft. Lily, thanks for coming. Maya gestured to the seat across from her. Can I get you something? Coffee, tea? I'm okay. I'm too nervous to drink anything right now. Lily sat down, clutching her bag like a lifeline. I still can't believe this is real. I've been looking for information about my father's family for years. I thought they were all gone or didn't want to know me. Tell me what you know, Maya said gently. About your father, about what happened. Lily took a breath. I was only 4 when he died, so I don't remember him very well. Just fragments, really. His laugh. The way he used to read to me. My mother died when I was 2, so it was just him and me for a while. Then he was gone too, and my mother's sister took me in. Did she tell you what happened? Not for a long time. When I was little, she just said my daddy was in heaven. As I got older, she explained about the accident. How he'd been driving to check on some kid from the youth center who lived out in a rural area. There'd been a bad storm, the roads were dangerous, and his car went off the road. Lily's eyes filled with tears. They didn't find him for 8 years. I was 12 when they finally identified his body. That's when everything became real. Maya reached across the table and squeezed Lily's hand. I'm so sorry. My aunt, she never talked about my father's family. I asked a few times when I was a teenager, but she'd get tight-lipped, say it was complicated, that they'd had problems. I figured his father must have been a bad person or that he'd rejected my dad, something like that. So I stopped asking. But you kept wondering. Always. Lily wiped her eyes. When I went to college, I tried to research my grandfather. But I didn't have much information. Just a name, basically. And there are a lot of people with that name. I hit dead ends everywhere. Maya pulled out her phone and showed Lily the photos she'd taken of the storage unit documents. Your grandfather has been carrying your father with him all this time. Look at this. Lily scrolled through the images, her expression shifting from confusion to understanding to H. Earthbreak. The letters, the clippings, the saved articles. Everything documented, preserved, held onto like precious treasures. He was looking for him, Lily whispered. He never stopped looking. Even after your father died, he kept everything. I think he's been holding on to it because it's all he has left. Lily looked up at Maya, tears streaming down her face now. What was the fight about? The one that kept them apart? Maya explained what Mr. Chen had told her. The argument about David's career choice, the harsh words, the pride on both sides that prevented reconciliation. Your grandfather has been living with that regret for over 30 years. He thinks his stubbornness cost him his son. But my dad died in an accident. They could have made up any time before that. Why didn't they? That was the question that haunted Maya too. I think sometimes people get trapped by their own pride. Your grandfather probably thought he had more time, and maybe your father thought the same thing. Neither of them realized how quickly everything could change. They sat in silence for a moment, both absorbing the weight of decades of missed opportunities. Tell me about him, Lily said finally. My grandfather. What's he like? Maya smiled. He's kind, gentle. He worked as a janitor for decades, never complained, never asked for anything. When I found him collapsed at work, my first thought was how alone he seemed, but also how dignified. He has this quiet strength, and he's been saving money his whole life, investing carefully, building something. I think he was always hoping to have someone to give it to. I want to meet him, Lily said firmly. Whatever happened in the past, he's my family. He's the only connection I have left to my father. There's something else you should know. Maya pulled up another photo. Your grandfather's investments. He's been building wealth for decades. Lily, he has over $400,000 saved. I think he was saving it for your father. For their future. For reconciliation that never came. Lily stared at the numbers. He lived as a janitor while sitting on that kind of money. I think the money wasn't the point. It was the hope it represented. The possibility of someday making things right. We have to tell him about me. He has to know he has family. That he's not alone. Maya nodded. But we need to be careful. He just had a heart attack. He's fragile. We can't just spring this on him. They spent the next hour planning. Maya would visit Mr. Chen first, prepare him gently. Let him know that she'd found information about David. Then, if he seemed ready, she'd tell him about Lily. They'd take it slow. Let him process each revelation before moving to the next. Can I give you something? Lily opened her messenger bag and pulled out a photo album. These are pictures of my dad and me, from when I was little. I want my grandfather to see them. To know what his son's life was like after they stopped speaking. Maya looked through the album. There were photos of a younger David Chen, smiling and holding a baby. Lily's first birthday. David pushing her on a swing. The two of them at the zoo at the park making silly faces at the camera. A life captured in snapshots, a life Mr. Chen had missed entirely. These are beautiful, Maya said, her throat tight. He'll treasure them. They exchanged phone numbers, promising to stay in close contact. As Lily stood to leave, she hugged Maya tightly. Thank you, she whispered. You didn't have to do any of this. You could have just cleaned out that storage unit and moved on, but you cared enough to dig deeper. To help people you didn't even know. After Lily left, Maya sat in the coffee shop for a long time, thinking about the weight of what she was about to do. She was about to change Mr. Chen's world. For better or worse, his life would never be the same after this. The next day, Maya visited Mr. Chen at the care facility during her afternoon break. He looked better than he had in the hospital, sitting up in a chair by the window, watching birds at a feeder outside. Maya, his face lit up. I didn't expect to see you today. I thought you'd be too busy. I'm never too busy for you, Mr. Chen. She sat in the chair across from him, suddenly nervous. How did you tell someone their whole world was about to shift? I went to the storage unit, she began carefully. I've been sorting through things. Good. Find anything useful? Any furniture you can sell? I found something more important than furniture. Maya pulled out her phone and showed him one of the photos. I found the box labeled for David. Mr. Chen's expression changed, becoming guarded. I told you, that's old history. Past is past. Mr. Chen, I need to tell you something about your son, about David. I don't want to talk about... He didn't leave you, Maya said firmly but gently. He died in 1995 in a car accident. The color drained from Mr. Chen's face. You're wrong, he left. After our fight, he left and never came back. No. Maya moved closer, taking his hand. He was living here in the city for 3 years after your fight. He was working at a youth center, and then one night in 1995, he drove out to help a kid who needed him. There was a storm. His car went off the road. They didn't find him for 8 years, but Mr. Chen, he was gone all that time. He didn't choose to stay away from you. Mr. Chen stared at her, and Maya watched as understanding slowly dawned, followed by a grief so profound, it seemed to age him 10 years in seconds. He died? David died? All this time I thought, You thought he was choosing not to come back. But he couldn't come back. It wasn't pride that kept you apart all those years. It was tragedy. 8 years, Mr. Chen whispered. For 8 years I could have been looking harder. I could have. You did look. I found the articles. You hired investigators, put up reward money. You did everything you could. Not enough. Never enough. Tears rolled down the old man's face. My son is dead. David is dead. Maya let him cry, holding his hand, offering silent support. This was the grief he'd been holding back. The truth he'd been avoiding by telling himself a different story. It was better to believe his son had chosen to stay away than to face the finality of death. After a long time, Mr. Chen's tears slowed. He looked at Maya with red, swollen eyes. Why are you telling me this now? Why bring up old pain? Because there's more. Maya took a deep breath. David didn't die alone. He left someone behind. Mr. Chen, you have a granddaughter. The old man went very still. What? Her name is Lily. She's 26 years old. She's a teacher. She works with at-risk youth, just like David did. And she's been looking for you. I have a granddaughter? Yes, and she wants to meet you. She has pictures of David, stories about him. She can tell you about your son's life, the parts you missed. Mr. Chen, you're not alone. You have family. Mr. Chen put his face in his hands, his shoulders shaking. Maya couldn't tell if he was crying or laughing or both. When he finally looked up, his expression was transformed. The grief was still there, but alongside it was something else. Hope. When? He asked. When can I meet her? Whenever you're ready. She's waiting to hear from me. She's been waiting her whole life to know her father's family. Now. Mr. Chen said urgently, I want to meet her now. I've lost so much time already. I can't lose any more. Maya pulled out her phone and texted Lily. He's ready. Can you come to Evergreen Care Facility today? The response came almost instantly. I'm on my way. While they waited, Maya showed Mr. Chen more of what she'd found in the storage unit. The investment records, the evidence of his careful planning, his hope for the future. She told him about tracking down Lily, about the research and phone calls and determination to connect them. Why did you do all this? Mr. Chen asked. You didn't have to. You could have just thrown everything away. Maya thought about her answer. Because I saw your letters. I saw how much love you had that never got delivered. And I thought about my own grandmother. About how precious family is, how quickly we can lose people. I couldn't let your story end with regret and loneliness. Not when there was a chance to write a different ending. 45 minutes later, there was a knock on the door. Maya opened it to find Lily standing there clutching the photo album, looking terrified and hopeful in equal measure. Mr. Chen, Maya said softly. This is Lily, your granddaughter. For a long moment, they just stared at each other. Then Mr. Chen stood on shaky legs and Lily rushed forward. They met in the middle of the room, holding each other. Two people who should have known each other for 26 years but were meeting for the first time. You have his eyes? Mr. Chen said, touching Lily's face gently. You look just like my David. I have pictures, Lily said through tears. So many pictures. Of me and Dad. I want you to see them all. I want to tell you everything. They sat together on Mr. Chen's bed, the photo album open between them, as Lily narrated her father's life, birthday parties and bedtime stories, trips to the zoo and lazy Sunday mornings. All the moments Mr. Chen had missed now given back to him through his granddaughter's memories. Maya quietly slipped out of the room, leaving them to their reunion. In the hallway, she leaned against the wall, exhausted and overwhelmed and strangely happy. She'd done it. She'd brought a family back together,